I think we're good. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Alexa Tinsley, and I am the Director of Community Engagement here at Jett Foundation. Thank you all for joining us for our Rare Disease Day event. We are celebrating, like so many other organizations today, to help raise awareness for individuals with rare diseases and families. We are streaming this on Facebook Live as well, so hopefully that has started. But I'm just going to give a brief introduction, give you a few pointers, and then I will hand it off. So we are going to hear from 6 amazing individuals today who will be sharing their experiences around mental health and anxiety. That is our theme for this year, so we're very excited. Thriving with Duchenne, a Rare Disease Day event focused on mental health and anxiety. So thank you all so much for being here, and a huge thank you to all of our sponsors, which you can see here on the screen, for helping us make this event possible. Before we get started, I just want to mention a few things. Like I said, this is being recorded and streaming live to Facebook. So if for any reason you aren't able to stay the full time, it will be up on our website, our YouTube, and Facebook later for you to watch. Also, Kyle and Sean will be putting it on their podcast, so you can listen to it that way as well. We do also have closed captioning available for you if you do want to use that. So if you click, there's a CC icon down at the bottom. You can choose to have subtitles on your screen. And there's also a full transcript that's available to you as well, if that's what you choose. If the font is too small for you, you can also click next to the arrow, or the arrow next to CC, choose settings, and you'll be able to make the font larger as well. So today's event will last until about 2:30 Eastern Standard Time. We'll be leaving about 15 minutes at the end of the panel portion for you to ask questions to our panelists. If you do have any questions, there's a Q&A box down at, like, for me, it's the bottom right-hand corner, and that's what we'll be using to answer questions at the end of the event. We will do our best to get to Facebook questions, but there is a slight delay. It's about 5 to 10 seconds, so we may not get to all of them, but we will definitely do our best to do that. The chat function is also available to you, so if you want to chat while we're going through it, that's great, but we will prioritize the Q&A panel for those questions. And with that, I would love to introduce you to our 2 moderators who are back for another amazing year. Sean and Kyle, hosts of the Two Disabled Do podcast. They are adults living with Friedreich's ataxia. And thank you guys so much for being part of our day again this year. And I will hand it off to you.
All right. Thank you, Alexa. And I just wanted to clarify that we try to act like adults, but we aren't exactly. I wouldn't refer to us as adults all the time, I don't think. Anyway, we are really excited to be here. We had so much fun with you guys last year, meeting your community and getting involved and celebrating Rare Disease Day together. On our weekly podcast, we spend a lot of our time talking about living beyond circumstances, no matter what those circumstances are. We all have bad days. We know that. And it's how we react that matters. And that's why we're excited to be here with you today and bring that fact to light throughout this panel. And these people that we have on the panel are wonderful examples of that. Sean?
I will echo when Alexa says 6 amazing panelists, that does not include Kyle nor I. So just clarifying. Before we introduce the panelists, amazing folks that we've gotten connected with over the last several weeks, we wanted to invite Dr. Al, as the professional, right? The real adult in the room. Not only is he a clinical psychologist, but he's a dad, and he's been a part of the rare disease community for a long time. Before we give it over to Dr. Al, a quick reminder for folks that maybe haven't heard of the Two Disabled Dudes or weren't here last year. Kyle and I both live with Friedreich's ataxia. And what I love about the podcast world that we get to be a part of when it comes to rare disease is obviously FA is quite different than any of the muscular dystrophies, especially Duchenne. There's a lot of similarities in the world of disability and rare disease, and we're happy to be a part of it, no matter what the condition might be. So Dr. Al, I know you feel the same way, honored and proud to be a part of the community yourself. Would you mind taking the floor for a bit.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you, Kyle. I'm really honored to be here to share Rare Disease Day with all of you. Coming to you live from picturesque Westchester, Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia, just up the road from Kyle. And I'm here to share just a few thoughts before I share the floor with our esteemed panelists. I am here because of two things. One, as Sean mentioned, and Kyle, I'm a dad first. My son Jack was born in 1995 and diagnosed a short time later with spinal muscular atrophy, a different neuromuscular disease. And Jack was given a year to live back in 1995. And I was so blessed to have him. We were so blessed to have him here with us for 26 years, not just 1 year. Here's the low-tech way to share him. Oh, no, I'm sorry. There we go. That's Jack, and he was that happy every single day. Every day with that boy was a party. And I feel so much gratitude for the years I had with him. I'm also a practicing psychologist. And over the years, my practice has grown and evolved because of my parenting experience to include many, many families all over the country who were affected by rare diseases of all sorts. Because of COVID, my license to practice is good in 35 states, not only Pennsylvania. So over the past 3 years, my practice has grown to include about 50% of my clients are families affected by rare disease. So with my personal experience as Jack's dad and my professional experience as Dr. Al, I've come to learn a whole lot of important things about the experience of living with a rare disease and caring for some with a rare disease. And I'm honored to be here today to share some of those thoughts with you and with our panelists. I think about 10 minutes, I'm just gonna share a few main points with you of things I've learned along the way, both as a professional and as a dad. It's really, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge the Jett Foundation for hosting this presentation on anxiety and mental health issues in general. Within our rare disease communities, mental health and emotional health often has played second fiddle. And the reason for that is very obvious to me. When I attended my first conferences as a parent, there were no sessions at the conferences on mental health or emotional health or even family support. It was only early in the 90s, the conferences I attended were research, science, medicine, how to fix your child's wheelchair, how to deal with a ventilator, how to find the best pulmonologist or orthopedist. And all of those things were critically important to everybody in the room and to me as Jack's dad. Bottom line is we all have to focus on the physical health of ourselves and our family members first. We have to. And in some cases, because of the medical fragility associated with so many rare diseases, it's really a matter of life and death sometimes. And the reason we have to stay focused on physical health. We can't talk about how we feel about things if we're not alive. So we have to start with the medical, make sure that we're medically stable, and then we have the opportunity to have some space to talk about how we feel and about our emotional lives. And I'm honored and I'm thrilled that the Jett Foundation and others now, I'm quite in demand these days because there are very few of us that live at the intersection of mental health and rare disease. COVID shined a light on mental health for the whole world, and rare disease folks are no exception. Obviously with Duchenne, and I have a number of families in my practice affected by Duchenne's, there's an extra layer of stress beyond what the average person has. And as I've interacted with many Duchenne families and others with rare diseases, there are some common challenges that I have seen as a professional that I'll speak to, and some common symptoms as well. First, I'll never forget the day my son was diagnosed with SMA. It's kind of burned into my soul, November 7th, 1995. The experience of a diagnosis of Duchenne's or any rare disease really represents a trauma for our families. And sometimes that period of time is short. For me, it was 4 days between having a normal, healthy baby and being told that this baby isn't going to live more than a year. For some families, the diagnostic journey, as we call it, is much longer, sometimes years. And there is trauma involved in having your world flipped upside down by a new diagnosis. The most common question that I'm asked by families with new diagnosis is, Dr. Al, is this normal? Is it normal that I can't sleep at night? Is it normal that I'm crying all the time? Is it normal that I'm scared that something else that is going to happen to me or my family? And the answer to that question is almost always yes. It's a normal reaction to a very unusual situation. Anybody faced with this kind of news abruptly is going to have their lives flipped upside down, and your mind kind of plays tricks on you. And early on for me, I was driving 40 miles an hour on the highway thinking I might get in an accident. I wouldn't light the fireplace at the house. I thought I'd set the place on fire. If my baby could be diagnosed with incurable disease, then anything could happen and anything would happen. My mind played tricks on me. And another psychologist told me that was normal too. So the challenge of reorienting after a diagnosis is very difficult. A second common challenge is living with uncertainty. All of us who are faced with the challenge of a rare disease are living with uncertainty every day. I just did another presentation before this one for a group of folks who work in industry, and I said to them, I'm honored to be here on Rare Disease Day, but for families like mine, it's Rare Disease Day every day. We are living with uncertainty every single day, and it's always with us. And that's a common challenge. It's hard for us to think about the future when there's so much uncertainty. That's a common challenge. Another common challenge is isolation. When we're diagnosed with a rare disease like Duchenne's, it's like we're launched into the twilight zone, into this place that other people really can't relate to. And it's lonely there. And we need to find some company and some hope when we're in a situation that is so unusual. Isolation is a common challenge. And everything is harder. We all have to do things the hard way when we have a rare disease. And my 26 years with my son were beautiful and wonderful, but they were hard work. With the wheelchair and a ventilator and nurses all the time and a feeding tube and all kinds of medical equipment. Everything that Jack did and everything we did as a family was harder because of having SMA in any rare disease. Because of these challenges, there are many common symptoms that I see in families affected by rare disease. Anxiety is number one. We're worried all the time. We're worried about ourselves. We're worried about our family members. We are sad some of the time. Depression is a common symptom. Some of us have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, from the trauma of the experience of the diagnosis and some of the interactions we have with medical professionals. Sleeplessness, some fears that sometimes aren't fully rational are all common symptoms. And again, in my experience as a dad and as a professional, I consider many of these symptoms a normal reaction to a very acutely stressful situation. What do we do in response to these challenges? We have to do what everybody else does first, take care of ourselves. You'd be surprised at how many complicated problems are solved by paying attention to sleep, nutrition, and activity, physical activity as we can. And also social connectedness goes a very long way. So these are what I would call the basics. And it's also very important, in my experience, personally and professional, to do our best to stay positive in the face of adversity, to move from a place of fear to a place of love and place of hope, to do our best to stay in the present, to appreciate every day, to surround ourselves with supportive people, and to have gratitude for what we do have, rather than focus on what we don't have. Those qualities have helped many families that I've supported, and they certainly have helped me in my journey. As I look back on 26 years with Jack, I feel much more gratitude than grief, because we kind of left everything on the field and used every minute that we could and stayed in the present every day. So I'm doing okay 14 months later after losing Jack. Lastly, I would like to also just add, as a psychologist, that sometimes we have two problems and not one. And one of the most common things that I see in my work is that when a person affected by a rare disease, especially if it's visible to other people, appears before a professional, a mental health professional, in this case, there's an assumption made by some in the field that the only source of stress for that person, or the only source of symptoms for that person, is the rare disease alone. And when you see somebody with a wheelchair, well, that's got to be really hard. That's why that person is depressed. And yes, it's really hard, absolutely. But in some cases, just as it is true for families who are not affected by rare disease, there can be two problems and not just one. And what I mean by that is that some people are vulnerable to mental health issues unrelated to SMA or to Duchenne's or to any other rare disease. Some people genetically are vulnerable to anxiety or depression biochemically. And that's true with or without a rare disease. So we need to be people shouldn't assume that a rare disease is the only reason for a problem. And as a professional, part of my job is teasing out how much of a person's stress or distress or symptoms are because of a rare disease and how much is related to other situational, family, or biochemical matters that they've inherited genetically. So those are a few thoughts, and I'll finish with this. Very commonly I'm asked, when should I, Dr. Al, seek professional support, and how do I find it? And the answer to that question is, if your symptoms interfere with your day-to-day functioning, and you're worried about yourself because whatever symptoms you're experiencing are interfering with your day-to-day functioning, that's a signal to ask for help. It's really hard to find professionals who understand rare disease, and I know that. It's the reason I'm really busy. And the best advice I have for you is ask your friends who are affected by rare disease, ask your doctors at the hospital, ask counselors that work at the school where you may go, or at the neuromuscular clinic where you're treated, who they know in the community who may be able to help. And again, because of recent licensure changes, some of us are available to a broader group than we used to be. So there may be access. All of my work is done remotely now. I don't even have an office, which has helped many families with rare disease who have a hard time going places in a vehicle, just as my son did. And finally, it's really important when you do seek professional support to ask the counseling professional what kind of experience they have with disability or rare disease, because you don't want to be their first client. You want to be among a group that they have some experience to draw from. There are one-on-one counseling approaches. There are groups. I'm facilitating a number of rare disease support groups that are very powerful and meaningful for the families that participate. And I'll finish there because I'm watching the clock. I hope these ideas are helpful, and I want to give airtime to our panelists who I was so impressed to meet during our rehearsal. I thank you, Kyle and Sean, for including me, and I'm ready to roll with the panel. Back to you guys. I hope that was helpful for a quickie.
Dr. Al, of course, it was very helpful. I love the way you talk about, in a roundabout way, whether you said it directly or not, normalizing much of what we're all up against, right? At different degrees. Just hearing you talk about how isolating it can be and how challenging rare disease can be and difficult and so on, just makes me feel better, because I recognize in those comments that you share, I'm not alone. And one thing that makes this panel incredible and the rare disease community incredible is being able to share the burden closely or far away and just talk about some of the things that we all deal with at one level or another. So Dr. Al, thank you for setting up the conversation for us today. And thank you again to Jett for helping. And of course, gotta say thank you to the esteemed panelists. And we'd love to introduce each of you at this point and get a conversation going about your role in the Duchenne community, and of course, share with others how you manage anxiety and some of the mental and maybe emotional challenges that go into day-to-day life. So if you don't mind, I'm going to ask, we'll give directions. So I'll call on people by name to avoid any of those typical Zoom lulls. And what we're looking for from each of you, of course, share your name and your role in the community, whether you're a patient or a caregiver or a parent or whatever it may be. And then we'd love to hear maybe just one thing that causes you anxiety as it relates to living this closely to the Duchenne community. So, Dr. Ryan, if you're okay, I'm going to start with you because of all the professionals, I think you're a second line. You've got letters after your name, so that makes you cool. Ryan, do you mind sharing a little bit about yourself?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, those are some expensive letters. So my name's Bryant Russell. I live in like rural southeastern Arizona. It's still pretty nice weather. You can probably tell I'm a patient. I've been involved with Jett before, and other nonprofits. So I'm excited to be here. I live by myself. My parents passed away in 2021. And my biggest source of anxiety is just when you realize that I can't do anything by myself, that I have to have caregivers here. And, that is a big worry for me is if I can't have somebody or what do I do? So I say that's my biggest source of anxiety.
Thank you, Brian. Of course, we'll come back to each of these things as the conversation unfolds. So Ryan, thank you for setting the stage for us. Amanda, I'm going to move on to you. Do you mind telling us a little bit about you, your role, where do you live, and something that causes anxiety for you?
Sure. My name's Amanda. I'm in Irving, Texas, just right outside of Dallas. I'm a mother to a son that has Duchenne's, and I'm also a sibling. I had two brothers that had Duchenne's as well. And so kind of my main source of anxiety would be just doctor's appointments and coordinating. My son is 15, and so he's obviously having more appointments, just, preventative appointments. So that kind of brings a little bit of anxiety in my life personally.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Luke, I'm putting you on the spot. Do you mind
of course.
sharing?
Yeah. So my name is Luke Hains, and I am from Lebanon, Pennsylvania. So it's about 20 minutes outside of Hershey, PA. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with Hershey and Hershey's chocolate. But I am a recent graduate of Westchester University, so not too far from Dr. Al, who previously spoke, which is pretty neat. But I am a brother of a kid with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. His name is Levi. He was diagnosed at the age of 2. So I was about 8 years old when that all happened. And I'm also his home health aide. So I have the ability to take care of him in the home setting, which is a blessing. And I have also had the experience of being a home health aide for another kid with Duchenne, who is a freshman at Lebanon Valley College. So it's a private school not too far away from me. So I have 2 kiddos that I take care of on a daily basis. So that's kind of my role in the community, home health aide, as well as a brother. I also have another brother who does not have Duchenne, and he also is a student at Westchester. And one of the, I would say uncertainty, one of the things that Dr. Al touched on is probably the biggest thing that stems anxiety inside me, is just the uncertainty, knowing what the future holds. And one way I combat that is just living presently, taking each day as it is, trusting in physicians and, the medical field that pushing these clinical trials and getting kids into them is helping them prolong their lifespan. And that's, I think, is an amazing way to look at it. Obviously, there's not a cure at this moment, but just thinking presently, taking it day by day, and just being present around loved ones is probably one of the ways I combat that, as well as putting myself first and taking care of myself. I think that's a great way to just show your loved ones that, I take care of myself first so that I can take care of you guys. So that's probably my biggest way I combat that. So.
Absolutely. Luke, thank you for sharing. Gav, I'm going to put you on the spot next. Would you mind sharing where you're at in the world, your role in the Duchenne community, and something that might cause you anxiety?
Absolutely. So I'm Gav, I'm 21 years of age. I have Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And in COVID, I grew up in the UK, but moved to Israel in 2021. And I would say that currently, in terms of my biggest source of anxiety, and I think actually today's been one of a pretty tough day on a mental health side, and I'm not usually one to open up about this type of thing, especially on a recording. But I would say, look, there's I think a big thing about the big source of anxiety is the fact that my friends are able to move on. Some of them are starting, to get married, starting to be in some very serious situations, able to get on with their lives. And I feel like yet again, I'm sidelined, and it's like a little part of me has died yet again. So I'd say for me, the fact that, that I guess don't have the ability to just get on with things and have that luxury is eating away at me a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. There's probably some real, I don't know if calling it FOMO is fair in the rare disease world, but certainly something that we all probably have to grieve on a reoccurring basis. I appreciate you sharing in that way. Thank you, Gab. Cal, you're in the hot seat, buddy.
All right. Hi, my name is Cal, and I have Duchenne muscular dystrophy. I'm 21 years old, and I live in Massachusetts with my family. Biggest cause of anxiety for me is not knowing what the future holds. With living with Duchenne, I don't know if from one day to the next if I'll still be able to, lift my arms up or even just operate my computer. And that's been a really big source of anxiety for me. The way that I cope with this is I try to stay positive, and I find that I'm able to stay positive through just, even just being involved in the rare disease community. Because like what we were saying earlier, is that we're sort of able to bounce ideas off each other and know that we're all going through this together.
Wonderful. Thank you, Cal. And thank you, everyone. This is a super powerful panel. And I want to start with some questions going back to Dr. Ryan, because you told us that one source of anxiety for you is that everyone's got to do things for you. But you got your Ph.D. And I think that's just incredible, that accomplishment. And so how do you accomplish something like that? Keep your mindset on that while allowing others to help get you there?
Well, first, I think it's pure stubbornness. You need to have some stubbornness there. And luckily, nowadays I was able to do it online. Once I'm on my computer, that's kind of my source of freedom. I can use Dragon Naturally Speaking. Let me tell you, when I first started typing a 10-page paper with like one hand and the on-screen keyboard, that's a long process. But for me, I kind of added anxiety on myself because I was determined to do it all without any extra help. And a lot of personal stuff happened in my life that I did discover, like my mom fell and broke her shoulder and elbow. And, I had to find other like care, make some things happen. But just things like that, I couldn't just work through them because, they really made it hard to work. They kind of were a setback. So I really wasn't as productive during that. But I kept working, and it may have taken me longer than it had to. I barely made it in time. They gave me some extensions, but finally at the very end, I had a mishap at Thanksgiving, and I ended up breaking my leg and my ankle because not related to my disability at all. And so I finally got an extension based on that, and that's how I was able to finish. So I would say from that, I'll probably give it a longer answer than you wanted. But it's good to do things on your own and in your own way, but it's also important to realize that, hey, I do have, I'm not like everybody else. I have a few additional needs, and it's okay to get some help, but I'm a big proponent of not relying on too much additional help. Trying to do it
Yeah.
like everybody else.
Ryan, I really love your response. You thought it was too long, but no, I thought it was perfect because it really illustrated that it's not going to be easy. I think all of us know that. It's very clear by now that a lot of things are just not easy, but I love how you have got your mind on that goal. I happen to know it took you 7 years, I believe, to complete, but it is just an amazing accomplishment. So congratulations. And Amanda, I want to go to you because, you talked about one of your sources of anxiety was just doctor's appointments and being at places and getting everywhere. And we happen to know, because we talked to you a little before, that you received a new van to help get your sons to everything and you to everything you need to get to. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. My family was one of the recipients to receive a van here in 2022. So we've had the van since January 7th or 10th. So just over a month. So that was a main source of stress last year, the years before that, and just having that weight lifted off, really took off a lot of stress and anxiety that I had, because not only was it doctor's appointments, but it was, okay, I need to make sure that I have the manual wheelchair, lift my son Darren, get him into my SUV. And, that was a big source of anxiety, when we had to go to doctor's appointments. It was very difficult for me. So I still have a little bit of, anxiety about just generally going to the doctor's office. I grew up with siblings that had DMD as well. So I'm used to the setting, but just being a parent, being not a sibling this time, it kind of, I can kind of feel, what my parents were going through, so I kind of have, yes, I'm used to, going to appointments and things like that, but it's just, the anxiety of, okay, are they, what are, are things progressing for him? Are there going to be, does he need to start taking, new medications? And, it brings us source of, anxiety. I internalize it. I don't really, let my son know, like, hey, I'm worried, like, hey, you're going to, you need to take this medication, we're going to start you on this, it's kind of, I kind of worry about that, because currently he's not taking any treatment. We have discussed possibility of, starting heart medication, which kind of brought on, this is a preventative measure, but, just knowing that anxiety, like, okay, is this going to add on, is he going to have a new diagnosis? Is there going to be other things going on? I kind of, yes, my stress level for traveling has definitely, it's way better. I feel like a huge weight is lifted off my shoulders. But it's just the aspect of, the ongoing care, what's next, because I kind of know what to expect, like what I've seen, with my brothers. It's just, just that little bit of stress, doctor's appointments. So.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. I think that the things that we care deeply about give us anxiety. And, the things that we need to perform at, those are the things that give us anxiety. And your role as a mother gives you anxiety. And it's probably
Right.
natural, right? Because you care so much about it. So thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you.
Amanda, we'll stay
Mhm.
with you for just a moment. Ryan talked about in his pursuit of his studies, he was stubborn. And a lot of what he does is, that commitment to doing it himself. And I imagine a 15-year-old guy is probably not much different, but you, I believe,
Yes.
have a unique perspective, not only as a mom to a teenager, but growing up with your brother. So can you speak a little bit to how that stubbornness may have shown up a little bit in your life and how you as a family might leave room for that, but also encourage being okay with letting others help?
Right. Yeah, and I would say, my son, so Darren, he's very independent, like to where he can get stubborn about something. I'm like, I'll walk in and I'm like, he's trying to do something. And I'm like, Darren, how come you didn't ask me for help? He's like, I got it. I can do it, and that's kind of like, how that's kind of like been our motto, even before he was, when he was still ambulatory, he was still trying to do things, with caution, he was still trying to do things. So he does have a little bit of that stubbornness. It's still, he perseveres is what it is. And kind of, with me in my situation, I'm kind of stubborn too. I will do everything for Darren. And, me and Darren are pretty much like, he's like, mom's the person, she knows what to do. She knows what I need, things like that. So it has taken, it's kind of with me also, because I'm kind of stubborn. I'm like, I'll do it. I got it, kind of thing. So that, right, me and him are very similar. And, my brothers were like that too. I had, my brothers were, they were out there in their wheelchairs, off-roading, just causing all kinds of mayhem in the neighborhood, just like, it's just, they were very, they were stubborn because they were like, hey, we're not letting this hold us back, in that sense, that's how, my son and my brothers are, they didn't let anything hold them back, anything tell them no, even if it took them, like you were mentioning, with the Ph.D. With Ryan, even though it took him a long time, he still persevered. And that's kind of how my son and my brothers are, they no roadblocks, even though it might take you, something that would normally take somebody like 2 minutes, it might take them, 15 to 20, they would still do it, So that's just kind of my perspective.
Sure.
But yeah, I definitely understand the stubbornness for sure, but stubborn, not in a bad way,
Yeah. You talk about your brothers and even your son kind of pushing the envelope, right? Still doing whatever they can while they can. And that immediately makes me think of stories I've heard Gav share about, riding horses and doing the different things that he's doing. So Gav, I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you talk about maybe some of the risks you're willing to take to pursue things that you're passionate about?
Yeah, I mean, some would argue, especially my parents, that it could be stupid at times. I just like pushing the limit. Yeah, I've caused myself a few issues. I mean, a few years ago, for example, I was just trying to, play a bit of soccer. I took the footrest off my chair and was kicking around, and unfortunately, at full speed, the power cord came out. Now, next thing I know, I was flung onto my shoulder and I felt a crack. So I thought, this isn't great, but I started laughing because I think my whole dopamine is a little bit rigged in a wrong way. But anyway, that's just an example. The main example is, as Sean very cleverly said, is that the horses. A lot of doctors used to bring up statistic sheets about why horses are unpredictable and dangerous animals, and why maybe I should stop riding. But my response was simply, listen, I'd rather ride, fall off, get injured, never ride again than be precautionary, sit on the sideline, because the repercussions of my mental health are twofold. Like a doctor said to me at 17, I'd have to stop riding, and thankfully, I'm still, I'm able to ride, and I've got a session tomorrow morning. So, that's not going to change. And the same applies to my skydiving. Everyone said to me, I'm not sure it's the best idea to jump out of an aircraft with Duchenne, obviously for tandem skydiving. To which I responded, okay, try and stop me. So I'm in the process of arranging to get it sorted from between 12 and 15,000 feet. So that could be a lot of fun. It's not like a thing I'm going to be taking up daily. It's a once in a lifetime thing. And my thought process is, look, if a paraplegic can do it, there's no reason whatsoever that I can. Thank God my heart and lungs are in a steady place, and I wouldn't do it, if I wasn't sure about it. Even if I'm not entirely sure, I still like to push, but I feel pretty comfortable about that. So yeah, that's really where that determination lies. No one will stop me no matter what. Obviously, unless the law comes into it, then obviously I'll stop at that point. But up to that point, there's nothing. Of course, I'm not planning on. Anyway, it's like, I'm not planning on any issues like that. But so that's really my philosophy with these things. Just go and get it. Don't wait for it.
Yeah. We've all probably heard it one way or another. You don't really know your limits until you cross them, right? Or until you're right up against them. So kudos to you and really the team for, whether it's a big adventure like skydiving or pursuing education or whatever it may be, when we begin to realize that our disability doesn't define who we are, our disease doesn't contain everything about us, it just maybe introduces new limits. There are still ways to pursue what you're passionate about and what's exciting for you and what gets you out of bed, even beyond those challenges on a regular basis. So Gav, thank you for sharing that way.
Yeah. So speaking of pursuing what we want out of life, Luke, you told us that one thing that gives you anxiety is just uncertainty. And one way that we combat that, I would say, in general, is that we plan for the future and we have goals and we shoot for things and we accomplish things. You're a caregiver for your brother. And so I imagine at some level, there's a balance between the things that you want as a person, as Luke, and the things that are needed for your client or for your brother, which are also kind of the same thing sometimes. And so are there challenges involved in finding that balance between what you want and what's required for your brother and your client?
Yeah, so there's daily challenges that arrive just from taking care of him from the time he wakes up to the time he goes to bed. But like I like to say, at the end of the day, I'll always be his brother first before his home health aide, no matter what. That's just, he's my brother. We fight like brothers. So we obviously have our challenges, as any siblings would. but the way my situation is now is I am a recent grad, so I'm still working at home for now. So I'm fortunate enough to be able to help my family and still pursue my career goals. And at the same time, I'm helping him pursue his. So these kids with Duchenne, they are thriving with Duchenne. They're getting their high school, graduating high school, going into college, getting their college degree, pursuing a career that they are interested in. So it is a balance that took time for me to figure out. But it was more so having the mentality that if you put in the time and control what you can control, that balance is sustainable. And I'm thankful to be in the position to where I can, pursue my life and my goals while at the same time help kids with Duchenne and rare diseases.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Luke. You're an amazing example, not only to the community, but just to everyone. So thank you for sharing. Cal, you also mentioned that one thing that gives you anxiety is sort of thinking about the future and just the uncertainty. I don't know if my body is gonna keep up over time with what I want to do. And you've also shared with us that a goal of yours is to try new things. So when there are things that you're trying for the first time, such as like being on a panel with a bunch of people, what do you say to yourself? What do you think about to help you through these anxious times?
That's a really good question. I'm really gonna have to think about this one.
All right.
Oh, this is a tough one. You're putting me on the spot here.
So then, you know what, Cal, let's talk about something that you love. Let's talk about gaming. When
Okay.
when you play a game, you've let us know that you love gaming, and let's just assume that you always lose. What is the value other than winning and losing of gaming to you?
Well, for me, a big part of the value of gaming is just the even playing field that it makes for everybody, regardless of your ability. And I think that's a big part of the beauty of gaming in a way.
Awesome. And I'm just reading in the chat here a little encouragement. Hi, Cal. I'm such a huge fan of yours. So you've got a fan out there. Awesome.
Cal, you strike me as a very positive individual. I feel like I can hear the energy in your voice, even when you tell us we're putting you on the spot and you don't want to talk. Can you tell us where maybe that comes from? A lot of people might look at you on the sidewalk and think, man, life must be hard. But I get the impression from 30 minutes on today's call and call a few weeks ago that you're an optimistic kind of person. Where do you suppose that comes from? Is it because you always win in your games, or is it something else?
Well, most of the time I lose in my games, but I play them for fun. I think a big part of my positivity, it comes from my parents have definitely taught me that it's very important to have a positive attitude through life, because you don't want to go through your life, grumpy and unhappy. But I do that through like I'll have conversations, with my family, about how, my disability may look, kind of bad, but then there's people that always have a situation much worse than me. And I think that's something that helps me stay positive.
That's a good principle. I think everybody can apply to life in one way or another, right? It could always be worse.
Ryan, I want to go back to you if you don't mind. You're one of the things that you do is life coaching, and maybe that's your main thing. And so, shifting a little from the mindset of I'm so anxious to when others are anxious, when your clients are anxious about something, as a life coach, what are some of the things you talk to them about when they're in that anxious place?
Well, one thing is, so my business is called Life on Positivity. I'm all about trying to find the positive out of whatever negative you can find. And I think a big thing is we usually aren't aware of what exactly is our source of anxiety, or a lot of times we think it might be something else, but maybe it's other things going on. And one thing I especially do if somebody comes to me and I might say, I think it'd be better for you to talk to a counselor or therapist that about this specific issue, because as a coach, I'm not really there to help you find what's wrong with you. Somebody else can help you find what's wrong, but I'm going to help you overcome it and set goals in your life to overcome things. So I think the biggest thing is we have to make sure that we're not setting too big of goals, or we do have a big goal, make sure there's small goals that lead up to that. So, I try to help them maybe see what kind of things are causing anxiety, what they could do themselves to help, make sure they avoid certain situations or be prepared. Because one thing for those of us with disabilities, I used to think it was just me, but I found out it's everybody, is it's very hard to not anticipate the worst possible situation. I used to say, hope for the best, but expect the worst. Now it's more be prepared for anything, but know that the best can still happen. And somebody write that down. That just came to me. But,
We got your back.
All right, thank you. But yeah, I think it's just really be open to seeking out help from professionals like Dr. Freedman, because it's ridiculous to just try to do things by ourselves. Just like how I need somebody to get me dressed in the morning, it'd be ridiculous for me to say, all right, if I can't dress myself, nobody's going to dress me. You guys should be glad that I let other people dress me. So we need to be willing to get help. And I think I kind of lost myself in my answer there, but I hope, did I answer your question?
Yeah, that was wonderful. And I actually, I love how you put yourself into your response, right? Like you're like, all right, this is what goes through my head. And I think it's something that we can all relate to as people with disabilities. Dr. Al, I wanted to invite you on the same question. I really don't mean to pit you guys against each other, but I wanted to see if you have anything to add on. As a psychologist, what do you talk about, or how does the process go when someone's experiencing a high level of anxiety?
Sure. Well, my first response is I'm going to send the client to Ryan because he's really good at this stuff. I'm only half kidding, Ryan. I hope we can get in touch after this because I think you could be very helpful to many of the clients that I work with, and I have more than I have time to serve. So I'd love to get to know you. I have so much respect for all of you on this panel, and I'm so honored to be part of the group. It's hard, just as Ryan answered for himself as well as a professional, I'm going to do the same thing. So many of you talked about the burden of rare disease and the stress of what could go wrong, and Amanda talking about getting your son to the appointments. I lived that life for 26 years, and that sort of living on the edge, I felt as a dad, I was living on the edge all the time. And the amount of attention to detail and vigilance required to keep my son safe and to do the right thing and in a safe way, it took an extraordinary amount of energy. So when you, as an example, one of many examples, Amanda, when you talked about the appointments and the anxiety about going, I felt the same way, not only about the appointment, but the van and the tires and the wheelchair lift and the nurse coming with my son and the ventilator being charged up. And do we have the formula for his feeding tube and the medicines? It was a lot, and it was a crazy thing to do. And there were risks every single time we left the house with my son. And so I experienced that anxiety, what I call living on the edge. And I helped myself be less anxious by staying on top of things. So for all of us affected by rare disease, if we essentially follow doctor's orders, we do what we're told that keeps ourselves safe and healthy and our family members safe and healthy, and we know we're on top of things, it reduces anxiety while we're experiencing anxiety because of all those scenarios that are bouncing around our head. The flip side of all this is, how do we take a break from this? How do we take a break from the things we're worrying about all the time? And what can we do in parallel to staying on top of things that helps us have inner peace? And to me, that requires attention to things outside of our rare disease, relationships, hobbies, work, friendships, anything to take our mind off of the problems that we know are facing us and to take care of ourselves outside of having a rare disease, and to have gratitude. I'll say it in a different way than a couple of you said it. Yeah, things could be worse, but what we have, it's important to have gratitude for what we do have. And I felt that way every day of my 26 years with my son. So by staying in the present, it's another way to put it, staying in the present, not thinking too much about the future, staying in the present with family, friends, relationships, hobbies, sports, music, anything that we enjoy, then we have a break from living on the edge. We stay in the present. We have gratitude for that moment, and that reduces our anxiety. So again, I'm speaking from both personal and professional experience, and I hope that helps. And I have great respect for Ryan, the work you're doing, and for all that you're experiencing and expressing here. I'm learning a lot by listening.
That's great.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Al.
Thank you.
You said something that struck me, and I'd love to throw the question out to everybody, so we'll give everybody a moment to answer. It's pretty lighthearted and maybe fun. And of course, we'll wrap up with some more heavy-hitting questions as we come to an end in 10 or 15 minutes. But Dr. Al, you talk about things outside the condition, right? Or things outside our disease. And we heard Gav talk about skydiving and horseback riding, and Cal mentions gaming. And I'm sure everybody's got a thing, right? Whether it's making art, making music, drawing, or Kyle's case, I don't know if you call it art, but trying to do something, or pottery, or I don't know, binge watching TV. Ryan also wrote books, and there's something that I think everybody gets energetic about when we're able to spend, call it carefree timelessness with a friend or a book or whatever it may be. So I would love to ask the group what you do to maybe take your mind off of the hard things. So I'll throw it to Amanda, and then we'll kind of just go around the room, if you will. So Amanda, whether you want to share from mom's perspective or maybe how you help your son get out of the funk, if you will, or take his mind off of the hard things, what is something you and or your family does to spend energy on something that's life-giving?
Yeah, I would say one of my big things is I love cooking. So my son, Darren, he's a big foodie. So he'll ask me things like, I'll make dishes like they're from different, cultures. Like I'll make Japanese food. We'll do like something together. Like we've made homemade sushi. That's just kind of like a thing we kind of bond with because he's such a big foodie and I love to cook. So I cook things from all over, any dish from anywhere I can pretty much make. Even like he loves Korean, he loves Japanese, anime, Korean food, anything to do with, anime or anything like that. And in that culture, we kind of bond over that also, because I grew up, my brothers loved anime. So we kind of grew up like that. And, one of my brothers was a big foodie also. So he would always like make weird concoctions and things like that. So it kind of carries over to, me and, my son, Darren, our life, so that's kind of something we bond over. I love cooking. He's a big foodie. He'll just send me random recipes like, hey, can you make, rice cake soup from this creator, can you mimic that? So we do that. Like every once in a while he'll throw me a new dish and I'm like,
Awesome.
I don't know if I can cook squid and all that, but we try.
Try it, right? You never know until you try. That's awesome.
Right.
Luke, it's been a few minutes since we've heard your voice. I'd love to hear from your perspective, not only your brother that's 24/7, but as a caregiver to him and the other young man you mentioned. What is something you do to focus on yourself and or kind of get out of that headspace?
Yeah, so me personally, I am very into fitness and nutrition. So as I think just overall general health, everybody should be aware of and prioritize every single day, because how are you supposed to take care of someone else, especially in the perspective of a caregiver, when you aren't taking care of yourself first? So that's one way I kind of reduce the anxiety, because being able to help someone for me reduces anxiety, and just to have the ability to advocate for them. So if I don't put myself first, I can't help them. So ever since I was younger, I kind of realized, my brother didn't get the ability to, once he became not ambulatory, he doesn't have the ability to wake up on his own and go be active, and really take care of his health, whether that be go for a run or whatever. You have a hobby that's, expending calories. So that's kind of where my perspective initiated. Just seeing him go through that kind of sparked it in me to, hey, I should probably take care of my health. And that's always stemmed from sports growing up through middle school, high school, being a collegiate soccer player. So that's kind of how I handle those things. Just going to the gym, it's kind of that place for me where all my problems seem to fade. I can just focus on myself, know that I'm, building a strong, durable body to help Levi and my other clients. So, and if you are a home health aide, you know that being strong in a sense is helpful, because whether it be doing transfers or just different things like that, it's really a reflection of your health, and just having the ability to take care of that person. And then as a family, I would say my family is very big into just me and my brothers will play video games, kind of like Cal does. And I think it, just as he said, it's a great way for an even playing field amongst kids. It's a great way for them to communicate across the world, make new friends. And it's something that we can all engage in, whether I'm at home or when I was away at college. So, and as a family, advocacy is a big thing. Just taking part in, for example, last summer, we took part in a mini documentary that was a day in the life of Levi through an amazing company called Ultragenics. I recommend going on their YouTube and checking it out. It was an amazing production. So props to them. But that's just another way we as a family can kind of deal with those things, just advocating and understanding, it takes a team to live this lifestyle. So.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Ryan, you talked about living alone. What is something you might do when you feel maybe you're wrapped up in the headspace you don't want to be in, or when you just want to veg? What's your veg of choice?
Well, I should say I do hang out with my cat,
Okay.
although I have no idea where he is right now. Like I play video games sometimes, but if you do that too much, and after a while, it just sort of gets depressing. Kind of.
Only if you're losing.
Oh, well, I don't know any other way to play.
Okay, fair.
But, like I'm not one person to do just one thing. I do different things when I feel like it.
Good.
But a big thing about me is, I guess because I'm an Eagle Scout, I like to help people. I like to do service. It like all the time I'll see weed somewhere, or think, man, I want to go help that person. Like, oh wait, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I always forget that I can't do yard work, things like that. Which I mean, it is kind of nice. I can't help my friends move,
This is
Get out
true.
of that real
Yeah.
easy. But so a lot of it is I reach out to friends, I talk to people. For a long time with life coaching, I was a life
Sure.
coach before I was ever a life coach.
Hmm.
I like to help people. And I know people seem to open up to me very easily. And then I realized nobody ever took my advice. They'd come back later, oh, I should have listened to you. But I found out as a life coach, if people actually have a little bit of money invested in it, they'll actually listen to do what you recommend.
Yeah. Nice. That does tend to make a difference when somebody when there's some when there's some investment on their part.
Literal buy-in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Real quick, we got two more. I'd love to answer this question. Cal, we'll go to you, and then of course Gav. Cal, is there anything beyond gaming that gets any of your energy for fun or relaxation, or to get your mind off the hard things?
Well, a big thing that I do to get my mind off of that stuff is by just, hanging out with my family.
That's huge.
Everyone, well, not everyone has a family to lean on, but when you do, that could be a very useful tool.
Yeah, one of my favorite things is just playing cards with my mom and brother. So like it's just, there's no real agenda, and we don't care about time. We're just gonna enjoy each other's company for a bit. Gavin, I know you mentioned horse riding and planning some extreme adventures, but how about a day-to-day basis? What is something you do to stay optimistic about whatever you're up against?
All right. So one thing I started looking into on a day where I was feeling particularly low about 6 months ago, let's say, I looked into this kind of cold water swimming thing that was basically started by it's part of the Wim Hof method, where I was deliberately waiting until night fell, and to the point where the pool went to around 3 or 4 degrees Celsius, So in terms of Fahrenheit, it's it's got to be, I'm not sure entirely how high, but it can't be above 40. I don't think so. Not far off anyway, and it's kind of the cold water kind of let out a little scream as I go in. It kind of relieves that anxiety and kind of gives me a distraction. And I feel that from that moment I'm in the water, you know, the goosebumps, the kind of, you feel freezing and then you start to warm up. And from then I feel that my productivity goes through the roof. My ability to keep my head and stay calm and relax, and just to keep going. It's kind of like a reset button, kind of whenever I need it. Because I'm trying, you know, not to, I guess, medicate that with antidepressants and things. So I'm trying to, so that's what for one point, I mean, I was doing it for every day for about 5 months. But now that the water's warmed up, it kind of ruins the whole thing. But it's yeah, so that's really one thing I do on a daily basis to keep the positivity.
I'm going to thank you, Gav. I'm going to assume all of this could be offered as a piece of advice, right? Working out, cooking, trying new recipes, reading a book, playing a game, hanging out with family. Those are all wonderful pieces of advice for somebody who's up against some really tough stuff. I know we're getting close to the end and we want to leave time for a Q&A, but I do have one question. I'll throw it out to patients first. And if anybody feels so moved to weigh in, please do. So Ryan, I'm going to start with you. What do you hope your legacy is? Or what part of legacy do you hope to contribute?
You know, it's interesting that changes over time. I'm thinking here, looking at Gav and Cal. You know, I never imagined that I'd be with, you know, have as many physical limitations as I do now. When I was younger, you know, I always wanted to be like married, have children. I still hope for that, but you know, there's always that idea that you have children, you leave them behind you. But I want my like legacy or what I'm known for to be much more than that. You know, I wrote a book, and you know, if it's actually starts selling, maybe there's that. But I don't think it's so much important that you're remembered. You know, so many people in this world never get the history books. But if you've made an impact on at least one person, and maybe even if that one person is just you, that, you know, you've helped a life. Or so I just like to think that there's a lot of people out there that maybe I've helped without knowing I did. And that helpful.
Yeah.
You know, that one person, maybe it'll lead to 20 other people. Who knows?
Right. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Somebody educated Einstein, right? Maybe, I don't know. See a self discovered genius. I don't know. Cal, I want to throw the same question to you. We've seen comments and people are talking about your friendship, and you've all been inspiring to so many people watching and listening today. Cal, whether your thumbprint is on one life or 20 lives or thousands, what do you hope you're known for, or what your legacy might be?
Mine's pretty simple. I hope that, you know, I make the world a better place than it was before I was here, right? I want to leave the world a better place instead of making it a worse place before I found it.
It's wonderful. Well spoken. I don't know how old you are, but you sound older than you look, for sure.
Well, I get that a lot. I get told I'm an old soul.
Yeah, that's nothing wrong with that. Gav, I would love to hear your input on that same question. What do you hope is your legacy or a part of it?
I think fundamentally that I would say that, look, I want people to kind of remember me for the humorous side most of the time. I would say that also in terms of knowing that that I went out fighting if I do go out, that is. And I guess that developing that kind of fighter pilot mentality kind of gives you that there's no way, I think in a way Duchenne has been kind of personified in my eyes. It's almost like it's a character, kind of like two main kind of characters in a film, what the villain and the hero. Duchenne's kind of that thing. It's like comes in like, now can I just paralyze you, kind of give you more grief, and I just kind of go, no, don't have time for you, just come back another time, which will be never, hopefully. So essentially it's just remember me for kind of the strong character I was, and hopefully as Carol touched on, if the world is a better place when you leave, if it's better than it was when you first came into the world, then what, by me, that's the gold standard. I'm very happy with that. That's, in my eyes, that's a win. Whether it's one life or thousands of lives, it's irrelevant. That one person, you could have changed things dramatically for them. So yeah, that's really the legacy I want to leave behind.
Wonderful. I love it. In all of these answers, Duchenne is not what defines any of these people on the panel, and that's what I love. Luke, what would you say you want your legacy to be?
I would say just being able to help those who can't. That's kind of a motto that I've lived by for a while, whether that be doing my first marathon or whatever. Like, I was always the one who, I would do it for those who couldn't. So that's kind of the legacy I want to leave behind, is just being known as, taking it day by day, living a life that, my brother knew that I was, always there by his side. So I think that's the biggest thing for me, is just creating an impact. I relate a lot to what Gavriel and Cal said. Just being able to impact and help others. I think this world needs more peace and more people like everyone on this panel. So yeah, I agree with everything that he said so far.
Awesome, Luke. Thank you. And we have just a few more minutes left, but I do want to hear from Amanda and Dr. Al. So, Amanda, what would you say you want to leave behind as your legacy?
Just to kind of carry off, just take every day, day by day. That's kind of what, what's helped me throughout everything, all my stresses, and just take every day, day by day. Don't let the small things create a bigger problem in your life. Just kind of take everything day by day. Just carrying on. My father was very much like that with my brothers. Yep. Nothing really bothered my dad. Like, till this day, he's still the same. Doesn't let the things bother him. He takes everything day by day. And it just kind of carried on into my life. I take every day by day, when difficult things come on, just kind of work through the obstacle. Don't let that change who you are.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Dr. Al, we'll let you have the cap on this conversation. What do you want your legacy to be?
Thank you for including me, Kyle. More than half of my adult life, I was Jack's dad while he was here, and it was pretty intense 26 years, and I'm grateful for it. And what I'm feeling now, since his passing, is that I'd like to take the lessons I learned from my son and share them with as many people as I can, in the spirit of what Luke said, to be able to help those who can't. You said that very eloquently, Luke. Simply but eloquently. Help as many people as I can, using what I learned from this experience from my son and as a professional, to make the world a better place for people who face these challenges. So it's a real privilege to be here with all of you today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Al. I want to go back to what I said earlier because it's still going through my head. You know, what we talked about today was not Duchenne. You know, Duchenne does not define this conversation. We talked about a lot of things just as people, what we care about, what gives us anxiety, what we worry about, and what we want to do in the future. And I love that. You know, I think of myself as separate from my disease. And that's the feeling I got from this panel today. And I will take that with me. It's so uplifting on Rare Disease Day to be with all of you. And just thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you all. We'll give the floor back to Alexa. I think she's floating around here somewhere.
I am here. Thank you guys so much. Like that was amazing. And I really want to put something that Cal said in the chat out there because it really resonated with a lot of us on the team. If we let Duchenne define us or our rare disease, who's winning, us or the disease? Duchenne won't have the last laugh, I will. And I think that's super, super powerful. So Cal, I know, sometimes you get a little shy, but you got lots of good things to say. So thank you for putting that in there because I think
You're welcome.
a lot of people will resonate with that. And then we do have 2 questions in the chat that I will read to you guys. We're going to put the holding slide back up because again, our sponsors are amazing and really a big part of why we can do all of these things the way that we do them. But first question is, I am an occupational therapist working in the school system. What school-based groups and activities have you all found to be beneficial for those living with muscular dystrophy? So anybody can take it. So I would probably go to Cal's going to type an answer. Does anyone also want to answer it live?
I'd like to comment.
Yeah.
I think in my experience with my son and so many other children affected by muscular diseases and other challenges, in any school activity in a group where the child is included and among his or her peers and treated just like everybody else and included just like everybody else is worth its weight in gold. Those moments, those experiences that my son had at his school all the way through high school, he treasured, and I still do, and I'm in touch with some of those kids who stuck with him all the way through because he was fully included. There are best buddies and there are special programs as well, but my instinct is to comment on inclusiveness as much as possible.
Absolutely. Perfect. Ryan, did you have something?
I was going to say, I remember one time in 8th grade, I wasn't going to get to be a spelling bee because somebody automatically assumed I wouldn't want to do it. But I advocated hey, I want to do that. Probably slammed a few books and stuff, but made sure they do. But best thing for me in high school, I was, I got along with everybody. They nominated me to be a peer mediator, which is kind of where I first started helping people. It made me president of that. Also, chess club. I was the president of the chess club. Not like the Key and Peele skit, but the game chess anyway. So those clubs, get involved as much as you can with clubs. And it's kind of hard to go partying, but definitely clubs.
And I would like to say the same thing, just keeping it all inclusive for, children with different rare diseases, keeping it all inclusive. The school system, if you ask, they're there to accommodate. They're there to help out and make sure no one's left behind. When my son was in elementary school, his gym teacher said, "Hey, do you want to join the running club?" We actually ran a 5K together. They were able to set up a bus to take Darren to the 5K, even though it was a weekend. We did a 5K together. He was included in running club, which is, it was amazing, just him being included in there. And, they went up to him and asked, we're asking him, hey, do you want to join? You should join. It'll be fun. So I just think, within the school system, just keeping it all inclusive, don't, of course, keeping them safe, but not limiting them,
Absolutely. Second question we have, I can't tell you how much I learned today. I think a lot of us learned a lot today, so thank you all on the panel. I'm a therapist, and while there's a lot of coursework on chronic illness support, but not rare diseases for the professionals, are there any resources you recommend for mental health professionals for the patients? What are you looking for in a therapist?
Could I take this one potentially?
Absolutely, go for it.
So this was something, I guess, that, people first of all were telling me I needed to speak to someone years ago. And being that tough character, I kind of said, look, I don't think I need to. Why would I need to? This is stupid. And then actually, I went through kind of a whole kind of rigmarole, is what I like to call it, of kind of speaking to different therapists. What I'm looking for is essentially someone who's there to listen, allow you to vent, and find a way to kind of mitigate certain issues, at least temporarily. Because I would say, just talking from the Duchenne experience that I've got in terms of having the condition, is that you don't really, it's Duchenne causes a symptom, which is why you kind of go to therapy, I would say. So essentially, I'm looking for someone who can listen very well, someone who's able to see the funny side in things, and someone who, again, doesn't treat you that just treats you like a human being. That's kind of, so it doesn't feel like talking to a machine. It feels like you're talking, and that's what it should be, man to man, person to person. So that's what I would say in terms of what I'd look for in terms of a therapist or psychologist in that way to tackle certain challenges.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'd just like to amplify what you said, Gab. Thank you for that. Once a week or so in my practice, I might say 3 or 4 words in a 50-minute hour. And at the end of the session, the client will say, Dr. Al, you're the best therapist ever. Hey, I feel so much better. And I could be a cardboard cutout. Listening goes a long way, is the point. And you emphasize listening, Gavin. I appreciate that, and I do a lot of that, and it does go a long way.
That's all of the questions we have. I'm going to hand it to Sean and Kyle to wrap it up, but I just want to thank all of you from us here at Jett Foundation for being here. A huge thank you to Sean and Kyle for being amazing moderators. Even bigger thank you to the panelists for sharing their experiences and being willing to be on here. And, it is a sensitive topic. Mental health is a huge topic, but it's also a very sensitive topic. So we really appreciate you guys being willing to, share your experiences on a live and recorded, panel. So we appreciate all of you so much. And I will hand it back to you guys.
Thank you, Alexa. We certainly are honored to be connected to Jett and the.
We made it the whole way. We made it the whole way.
Oh,
I
Sean,
lost you, huh?
Yeah, there you are. You're back.
Yeah. Oh, I think
I'm
Sean,
in and out, so I'll throw it to Kyle.
All right. Well, I think what Sean was about to say was that we're really honored to be a part of the Jett community. We feel a strong connection because of the experiences and the willingness of everyone to open up and be who they are. And it's wonderful to have a space to do that, right? And I applaud Jett Foundation for providing that space and for all of you to contribute to it. We look forward to talking to you guys each time, and we hope that you have a great Rare Disease Day. It looks like Sean has a thought.
I do have. Sorry, Kyle said it perfectly. I would have said all of that maybe not all the same exact words, but one thing I will say, Alexa even said it up beautifully. Mental health is something that's going to be an ongoing forever issue. And we believe on the Two Disabled Dudes podcast, and I think a lot of you will share the same belief. Just simply talking about things helps release some of the power those issues might have in our lives. So I feel empowered after today, just hearing everybody share from their perspective and their journey. So we're all here to learn from each other. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of this, Kyle. Thanks for filling in with my weak connection there, Alexa, and the panelists. What a phenomenal group of people that I'm honored to be connected with. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. If you have, we will have a survey that will be on right after this when you close out. So if you would, give your feedback, it's how we make our programs better and do what we do. We'll also send it separately in an email. So if you want to do it that way as well. If you do have any other questions for the panelists, we will do our best to get it to them and then back to you. But we all know, life happens. So thank you again for being here. And with that, I will say goodbye and have a great rest of your day. Happy Rare Disease Day. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day and are able to spread awareness throughout the day as well. So thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.